The Chicago Bulls didn't even play last night, and somehow it still turned out to be a chaotic night for Chicago Bulls fans. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The Bulls versus Heat game gets postponed because the floor is too wet. Benny the Bull is out there embarrassing NBA players, and we're going to talk about Zion Williamson, Jonathan Kuminga, and Domantas Sabonis trade rumors that have recently popped up for the Chicago Bulls. Once again, we're going to break down what's real, what's smoke, and what the Bulls should actually do. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Tyler Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content last night, y'all. So, were y'all like me? Did y'all wait? Like it took them 2 hours after the start time almost to determine that they weren't going to play that game. I'm sitting there waiting and watching, and I'm like, listen, if they don't start it soon, or if they do start it, we're going to be up till like 1 o'clock in the morning just doing stuff for the game because of the game. Like, just go ahead and call the game. But it was just fun nonetheless. It was fun to see Stacey King and Adam Amin kind of figure out what the hell they were going to do. Talk about, he basically said that it was like a live podcast. Casey Johnson was trying to interview a bunch of people, everything from Haize Wilson, who got turned down. Everybody was turning down Casey Johnson for an interview with the delay of game. The players were out there playing horse and stuff like that. Tyler Herro was going to take part in a half-court backward shooting contest with Benny the Bull, but Benny hit the first one and Tyler Herro backed out of it. It was just completely chaotic. And the NBA has to have some type of rules for this, right? Like, I know this doesn't happen very often. Reportedly, the biggest reason why it happens is because the Blackhawks played the night before. Something with the AC caused the condensation to be there. Remember, the ice is underneath the hardwood floor, during the season. So, it's just crazy. Like, the Bull season, it just never fails for some crazy shit to happen during it. Like, it is. It's crazy. But, at the end of the day, this has happened before in the NBA. It happened back in 2016 in a game between the Kings and the Philadelphia 76ers. But it is what it is, man. So just a lot of fun things happening over the course of that. It's just a fun thing to watch and to see. Like, but the game's going to get rescheduled. They've already announced it. If you had tickets to last night's game, those tickets are still going to be valid once they do reschedule the game. So don't worry about that. You don't have to rebuy anything. So hopefully you guys have some fun with it. But last night was very interesting. And just sitting there, I was just like, this is the most Chicago Bulls thing ever. Like, when you just look at just some of the crazy shit that happens in your life being a Bulls fan, just looking at that, it was just like, all right, okay, cool. I mean, I guess this is where we're at with shit now. So nonetheless, though, let's move off for that. We still got, of course, with the trade deadline getting closer and closer, the first big trade chip in Trae Young has already kind of come to pass. You got players that are eligible for trade January 15th, but after January 15th, I think that's where you're going to see a lot more movement around the NBA. But we got a couple of new names, new-ish, well, revamped names, but new kind of reports in regards to the Bulls on Domantas Sabonis, Jonathan Kuminga, and Zion Williamson as well that the Bulls could be interested in. So the first one is Jonathan Kuminga. The Bulls, once again, are named as one of the teams linked to Jonathan Kuminga. I think this is coming down to whatever Kuminga's trade value is around the league, right? Like, Kuminga started off the season hot, and it looked like his trade value, he was going to do exactly what the Warriors wanted him to do. His trade value was going to be high. They were going to be able to move him at the trade deadline, get another piece that they actually like back that can help them on their run, in the Western Conference. The Warriors sit at 20-18 right now. Jonathan Kuminga has been getting some D&Ps here and there in regards to some things as well. And it just seems like at this point, everybody's kind of just waiting for things to pass and them to be able to trade Jonathan Kuminga. For what it's worth, he's averaging basically almost 12 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, 2.6 assists in 24 minutes per game. He's shooting the ball 32% from three, 43% from the field as well, which is the lowest mark of his NBA career. But Kuminga is always one of those things that, it's hard to really judge who Jonathan Kuminga can be as a player, in fairness, right? Can be as a player because the style of play that he has to play with, which is ball dominant, Very mid-range heavy as well. Not like DeMar DeRozan mid-range heavy, but still mid-range heavy. He has to be ball dominant, and he's never really been able to have that role in Golden State. There have been times where he's been able to have that role, and that's basically come, when somebody's out injured or stuff like that. So, and he's looked pretty good in that. The thing that I've always said about the Bulls' pursuit of Jonathan Kuminga is that it doesn't make sense to have Kuminga and Kobe White on the same team. It just does not. We got away from ball-dominant players, and not to say that Kobe's better at fitting in the offense than even Jonathan Kuminga's shown up until this point. Again, different situations may change things for Jonathan Kuminga, but he's better off-ball player. Jonathan Kuminga is not an off-ball player at all. They both are net negative defensively, so I'm not looking at that overall in that case as well. Kobe White also gets to the free throw line more. He rebounds at almost the same rate as Jonathan Kuminga, even with being smaller, and of course he assists at a higher rate as well. But the Kuminga thing is always like, to me, you just can't have Kobe, Kuminga, and Domantas Sabonis because at some point somebody's not getting the ball, especially with Josh Giddey, and you need more off-ball players if that's the case. Now, some of the rumors are to believe that the Bulls could trade Kobe White for like a Zubac, right, in that case, to get a center, and then maybe you trade Nikola Vucevic, which is in this rumor, for Jonathan Kuminga. It kind of makes a little more sense in that case. At that point, you got your defensive center in Zubac. Kobe's probably going to come in as the starting 2. You're going to be bringing in Kuminga as the 3, Modest as at the 4. And then, in the future, once Noah Essengay is ready to start playing some NBA basketball, you have Noah Essengay who can back up basically the 3-4 and maybe some small ball 5 spot as he puts on weight over his career. So, maybe in some case that it could work. Also, the Jonathan Kuminga thing, like I said before, if you're getting him for Vooch, it's basically a 1.5-year rental. You're getting him for the rest of this year, and then he has a team option for next year, so you can choose to pick that up. You can turn it down, whatever else it is. You can do those type of things. So if you're getting him for Vooch, which, like I said, is the rumor, there's more that you're getting him for a player that's going to be walking away anyway, so you might as well take a look. But then again, I'm somebody who I worry about the on the court. I realize not every basketball fan is really there, like looking heavily at the X's and O's and the fit there, but I am somebody that does that, and I just look at the style that Jonathan Kuminga plays. Even if you don't have Kobe, how well does that fit with Josh Giddey, who does have to have the ball as he runs the offense? But then again, Kuminga hasn't really played with a facilitator at the level that Josh Giddey can be either, and we all know that Josh Giddey he's fine taking a lesser number of shots if he's able to still play point guard. So maybe the questions there is a little overblown by me, but I do worry about the on the court fit when it comes down to that. So I think overall, just looking at this, right? If it's Vooch for Jonathan Kuminga, I'm not mad at that because of the situation. Jonathan Kuminga's contract isn't ridiculous. The fact that you can opt out at the end of the year, so even if you do go into free agency and let's say you're negotiating with Walker Kessler, you feel like you can really get him, you can opt out of Jonathan Kuminga's contract and then focus on Walker Kessler. And then at that point, you're really not at a net loss because you traded him for Vooch. So there's a lot of different permutations of that could make some sense for the Bulls. And, that's why you keep hearing the name. And, of course, the Bulls have had the interest reportedly in Jonathan Kuminga at last year's trade deadline. So we'll continue to monitor that. But Kuminga is a name that is still popping up for the Bulls in that case. And so, he is offense and he's not defense, but he is offense. So if the Bulls look at the Jonathan Kuminga thing and they say, much like with Josh Giddey, hey, Kuminga has not been able to play to his style, right? That's the same thing with Josh Giddey. He wasn't able to play his position, and we feel like we can give him that opportunity here and really see him flourish. I'm not mad at them taking a shot at it. It doesn't necessarily, unless it works, it doesn't necessarily dramatically change your ceiling or anything, but I can see you wanting to take a shot on it, right? Next up, could the Pelicans and Zion? So we've heard a number of rumors, mainly from Brett Siegel, who says this. With the NBA trade season officially kicking off, with one star leaving the only team he's ever played for, Pelicans Zion Williamson could be the next trade candidate in a potential deal with the Chicago Bulls. It's worth keeping a close eye on as the Pelicans and Williamson and Bulls inch closer to the trade deadline. Now, the thing that's looked at here is that are the Pelicans, and this is what Brett Siegel and many other people are starting to report, could the Pelicans get to the point where they're willing to take a Trae Young type deal for Zion? Basically meaning send us matching expiring contracts. We're good. No picks, no nothing. And I would say this, as much as I have a concern over Zion Williamson, and I want to be clear, I do not think in any way AK trades for Zion. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. I don't think, even with the opts out and the potential safety nets there, I just don't see AK dipping his toe back into another $40 million contract before we really have any type of framework of a team. And then on top of that, I don't see him trading for an injury-prone player as much as Zion. But with that said, Brett Siegel did say this part. They have the assets, talking about the Bulls, they have the assets and expiring deals to really get involved wherever they want at this trade deadline. Keep a close eye on them, maybe pursuing Zion Williamson from the Pelicans. I heard that there's been some smoke there about Chicago scouting New Orleans in recent weeks, and Zion would be the ideal buy low candidate for a team like the Bulls who have a lot of expiring contracts. So, much like the Kuminga thing, and I got to be fair with it, while I don't think it's going to happen, if the Bulls are able to acquire Zion Williamson for nothing more than expiring contracts, meaning you're sending a combination of Vooch, Zach Collins, Kevin Herter, whatever else it is, if you're just getting it for those level of expiring contracts, you'd almost be stupid not to try to make the trade. Now, the thing that the problem that it would present for the Bulls is that's going to take money away from the depth. AK's talked so much about depth and that being a thing, but you're getting a star. And when Zion's on the floor, he is a star. The question just becomes about how frequently do you expect Zion Williamson to be on the court? That has to be the end-all, be-all question in all of this, and that's the one that we don't have the answer to for sure yet, right? But when Zion's on the court this season, like there's no doubt about it, he's averaging a monster number, like 22.4 points per game, 6 rebounds, 56% shooting from the field. He's one of the most efficient players in the league this season when it comes down to that. I think he's taken like 1-3 this whole entire year. He's staying around the rim. He understands how to play. He's averaging over his steal per game as well. And if you do get Zion, you move Zion to the 4, you move Modest to the 3. At that point, right, Modest doesn't have to guard the size of players that he has anymore. So there's a lot of reason why this could make sense for Zion. For the Bulls to pursue Zion. Again, if it is a Trae Young type deal and you're talking about just your expiring contracts, I don't think I could be mad at that. Like, I get it, all the risks that are involved with Zion there, and I'm not acting like there's not risk. There are absolutely risks. All the risks that are involved that are there are kind of mitigated because you aren't sending any of your main pieces, and you're not sending any draft picks. If you add Zion Williamson to what we have here, if you're able to get him for Kevin Herter and Zach Collins, just to say that, I think that money works out, but it may not. Let's say you're able to get him for that. Yes, I love Zach Collins here, but let's say you're able to get him for that. Your depth is affected a little bit, but you're not really risking anything long term with that one. So I mean, you just got to look at it for what it's worth in that. You're not giving up any picks. You then add Zion to Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Modest at the 3, Zion at the 4. At that point, maybe Jalen, I guess, at the 5 if you move Zach Collins. If you still do the trade with Kobe for Zubac, Zubac there and Io at the starting 2. I'm not mad at taking a look at that if the Bulls want to say, listen. And the thing with Zion's contract is that he has to play at least 61 games, and then it's a weight limit that he has to hit there as well. If he doesn't do that, you can opt out of the contract. So, I mean, I'm taking it and looking at it. Now, keep in mind, Zion's played over 70 games once in his total NBA career. He's played over 60 games twice, and one of those is that 70 game, and the other time is his second year in the league. So there's still a risk there as far as how often is he going to be on the basketball court. But when he's on the court, you know what he's going to be. The question then becomes about, like, because you're only giving up depth, and if your team's healthy, how much would you be able to win in the games where Zion sits? And in the Eastern Conference, probably still a nice portion of them. So I guess that's what you're looking at. In that, like I said, it's risk. The money, the $40 million, it would affect how you are how active you are in the free agency of next year. It would affect your depth. You would have to then fill out more spots with kind of vet minimum contracts or rookies, which you hope that Noah Essengay is able to play next year. You still have your own first round pick to draft another player that you hope is going to be able to play. At that point, I would hope that AK would look at a high floor player because you got Zion at that point. You're trying to go all in. So we'll see, right? Again, I'm not mad at what the rumor is because it's rumored to be you can probably get Zion Williamson for expiring. And if that's the case, I'm not mad at it. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. All right, with that said, next up, the next guy that's been mentioned is Domantas Sabonis. Now, this is something that we heard early in the year. It kind of died off, and I don't know if this is now popping back up because of those earlier rumors or if there's something legitimately that's changed with that. The Kings are 8-29 on the season. They have no identity, and it's clear that they need to reset the deck. Now, it seems like unless Sabonis may ask for a trade, that they may be a little bit hesitant to do that. But with the inability to move Zach LaVine, nobody wants DeMar DeRozan. You got Russell Westbrook on that team. Yeah, they're an interesting team to watch, but they're not a good team to watch, if that makes sense, right? So, with that said, what would it take to get to get that, and that's a question. Now, I've said it before. Domantas Sabonis is a very similar style of player to Nikola Vucevic. It doesn't change the Bulls' style of play, meaning you don't get the pick and roll defender, you don't get the rim protector at center that we kind of need. You don't get any of those things, but you get a 29-year-old player who is better than Vooch. He's a better scorer. He's more fluid. He actually keeps his ass around the rim rather than floats out to the three-point line, which is really good when it comes down to that one. But, it does nothing to solve the Bulls' issues. Some of those other moves actually solve some of the Bulls' issues, right? A Zion especially gets you star power. Domantas Sabonis, do we view Domantas as a star? I know he's a damn good basketball player, and I love Sabonis as a player, but do we view him as a star? I don't know, right? I'd love to hear from you guys on that one, right? But hearing that the Bulls are interested in these players, and these come from a mix of Jake Fisher and Brett Siegel and, of rumors when it comes down to that. But I guess we got to see. I just guess we have to see what the Bulls do. But it does seem like, and when you add into the rumor that we heard that the Bulls could be buyers rather than sellers, now it starts making some sense when you start hearing about some of these deals and rumors that are going on, which leads us to our last topic. That I said on yesterday's episode, hearing that the Bulls could be buyers rather than sellers kind of shocked me. But now in actually looking at this trade deadline and after the Trae Young trade especially, if teams are going to start valuing expirings again, and that's what the Trae Young trade shows, is that there is still some value for teams with expiring situationally. And so if the Kings, if the Pelicans, if the Warriors, if these are teams that also are valuing the fact that you're not adding on long-term money and they're willing to take expirings for the players that reportedly they have available, I can't see the Bulls being buyers rather than sellers. I can see the Bulls saying, all right, bet. We're going to get a better version of Vooch. We still have Zach Collins and Jalen Smith. Sabonis has already shown that he can play with another big. He did so with Miles Turner, so he can play with another big maybe more naturally than Nikola Vucevic. So maybe we can get away more with the Zach Collins Sabonis minutes than the Vooch and Collins minutes. Jalen Smith and Sabonis, right? Better than Vooch and Sabonis. And we already know the Zach Collins Jalen Smith lineup works. So if the Bulls are viewing that, or they're viewing it with the Zion thing and saying, hey, we got a chance to add a legitimate star without giving up any of our main core, and then we can see how these players play with a star player and how close are we really at that point, I'm not mad at any of that. So, the expiring part is the big part of this. Some of these players that we've mentioned before, I was kind of more out on if it took draft capital, if it took a huge contract, things like that. But the way that things are shaping up now, it seems like the Bulls' expirings may have more value than what was originally thought. Now, I say may because the Trae Young trade is one in a vacuum right now. We still have years of data over the last 2 or 3 years that show that teams just don't value expirings as much as they used to. But as we know, every trade deadline, every season, it kind of has its own sub-stories. And with a lot of teams looking at that second tax apron and wanting to avoid that and sending off players that could push them into the tax apron, maybe we start seeing expiring contracts matter again. Keep in mind, the cap and salary is calculated by the end of the year, not the beginning of the year and where you are. So teams could be valuing that once again. And on top of that, the Bulls also have a $17 million trade exception as well, to where and a roster spot open with the Noah Escagay disabled player exception. So they have more flexibility than even what we thought at the beginning of the season. And so because of those two things, combining your expirings with also able to take another player into your trade exception, the Bulls may be sellers at the deadline, y'all. And I would be, listen, depending on what you give up and what those deals look like, I would be interested to see what this Bulls team, what the shape of this Bulls team is after being buyers at the trade deadline, after buying the talent and keeping your core. And then I do think it gives you, if you, for example, were to trade for Zion in the $40 million contract, I think that it makes it less likely that you keep Ayo and Kobe, and that's why I say maybe you still move Kobe for the Zubac deal or try to find a big for Kobe at that point in time. Again, I'm not mad at that. So we'll see what happens here, but the Bulls have options at their disposal. That's the one thing that is absolutely abundantly clear here. The Bulls have options, more options than I gave them credit for, and I think more options than what a lot of you guys gave them credit for too. We just got to see if AK is going to take advantage of it. That is the ultimate nullifier in all of this, right? Is that you don't know exactly how AK is viewing this. AK has a habit of falling in love with his players. AK hasn't been hugely he has been hugely risk adverse basically since the Vooch trade. He hasn't really taken a risky trade since then. You could view maybe the Josh Giddey as a little bit of that, but it was a 1-for-1 player trade. You see, he didn't give up any picks in that. I think AK really got shook by the fact he gave up 2 first-round picks and who those picks became for the Orlando Magic. And I think ultimately it's led them to now be in this spot where I think that AK doesn't like to take huge risks. But if these rumors are to be believed that you can buy on these players without giving up draft picks and using expirings, I think that's where you may see AK try to start cooking. Don't know how successful it's going to be, but I do think that's where you could possibly see AK try to start cooking. And we just got to see what's going to happen for the Bulls in that case. But let me know what you guys, if there's nothing else with this Bulls team, being a Bulls fan is never, ever boring. Whether it's postponed games, half-court mascot challenges, or being linked to every possible star in the league, Chicago Bulls stay entertaining. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you guys hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as well if you're enjoying the show. It helps the channel grow as well. It keeps Bulls fans connected as well when you leave those comments. Let me know in the comments, would you buy, sell, or stay put at this trade deadline with the upgraded rumors that we keep hearing? Let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.